Hi there, this is Andrew Gluck, and I'm here with Doug Quackenbush, an architect. And Doug happens to be the husband of an advisor that I know, Cheryl Holland. And Cheryl was telling me about how she was brave enough to ask her husband to to design her office, and that it really came out well. And she was talking to me about it and was so enthusiastic about it that I thought it would be helpful to advisors, for advisors members, to hear directly from Doug about how to design an advisor's office. Doug Quackenbush, welcome, and thank you for spending a little time with us here to show advisors how you can design a space that's really geared to advisors.
Right. Well, thank you, Andrew, for inviting me to do this. So yes, this did start out as a personal journey. Designing something for your wife is interesting. But one big advantage, of course, is we had plenty of time to chat about it and define very specifically what the goals were for this new office for Abacus. And so that's kind of the filter that I want to use to talk about the project. And this is obviously an adaptive reuse project. This building that we purchased is a mid-1960s era building that was originally a retail warehouse that had exterior brick walls that were load-bearing, but a pretty open structure that allowed us a lot of flexibility on the interior. So we were really able to optimize what we wanted to do from a planning standpoint for her office. The two primary goals that Cheryl articulated to me had to do with client interaction and staff collaboration. And so that's really the two major topics that I want to talk about, and they're kind of represented in the plan in these two orange rectangles, if you will. The client interaction piece being to the left, the staff collaboration being along the bottom and to the right. This is a photograph of the main lobby when you come in. Obviously, it would be anyone's desire when they're designing an office for themselves to make it welcoming and inviting, and that was certainly our goal with this space. You'll note that there isn't a single receptionist, but in fact a team of folks that are sharing this space with the main lobby. They're known at Abacus as the client services team, and they greet all visitors that are coming in. But one of the key issues that Cheryl and her staff had to deal with in their old office was this notion of keeping the clients in an appropriate space within the office and not filtering back to the more private staff areas. But at the same time, you don't want to create barriers that look like you're partitioning those clients from the staff. So it was real important in this design to create an area where clients could come in and be greeted and be taken to appropriate meeting areas and segregated from the staff, but not doing that in a way that was, off-putting. And so you can see in this photograph, this is actually along the main corridor once you come in the front door, that waiting area off to the right. These what we call thick wall, wood wall elements that create a measure of privacy and segregation between the staff areas and the main lobby. Also, the one that's to the left in the photograph is a thick wall that separates the actual meeting spaces from the lobby. So there's, again, an extra level of privacy and confidentiality that's built in to the design. That's also an opportunity for Abacus to feature news articles and other marketing materials that clients can observe when they come in, and those are interchangeable. This next slide is kind of a detail. I want to talk about these meeting spaces, which again was a big driver in the design. There's a lot of discussion that went into the design of these meeting rooms that are represented in these orange triangles at the top of the slide. We consulted with a colleague of Cheryl's, Dr. Jim Grubman. He's a family wealth psychologist in Massachusetts, on how to create the ideal arrangement and character for these meeting rooms with clients. We settled on a variety of meeting rooms in both scale and character, placing a priority on flexibility and adaptability for the various types of meetings that need to occur. The most popular room by far is the largest of the meeting rooms, and that's what this photograph is showing. It features a comfortable living room atmosphere as opposed to a boardroom or a conference room or an office atmosphere. which makes it much more conducive to having deeper conversations about family and personal issues. So we de-emphasize furniture that's targeted to technical use like whiteboards, desks, conference tables, and instead emphasized people-oriented furniture, as you can see from the the lounge grouping, the couches, and the plusher chairs and coffee tables. And it also, being the larger room, has greater capacity, so you could actually bring in larger family groups and have them meeting all at the same time in this space instead of having to go to a more conventional conference room. So Cheryl and her staff tell me that this is an incredibly popular room, that it has achieved the goal of allowing for very comfortable conversations at a variety of scales, and it doesn't create barriers, unintended barriers, with the furniture. The second meeting room is this sort of medium-sized room, and it's kind of a hybrid design. It does have, as you can see in the foreground, a table with 4 chairs. There's still plus chairs, but you do have a table that's, of course, very functional. Sometimes when you're dealing with papers, you have things to sign, etc. But it also still features a number of comfortable lounge seating options that allows for that more casual and comfortable listening and talking environment.
How big is that space, Doug?
The space is roughly 15 feet wide, 12 to 15 wide, and about 20 deep. The other space we were looking at is more like 20 by 25. And then the final option, maybe because us traditionalists have a hard time letting go, is a more traditional conference room arrangement. And this is similar in size to the second conference room we were just looking at. Obviously, it is more traditionally furnished with a conference table and office chairs and a credenza, but it might not surprise you to hear this is, in fact, the least popular room in use. It still has a lot of utility, but it does tend to throw up traditional barriers, and when you have those other options, as you can see in the other 2 meeting rooms, those tend to be first preference. You do see in this slide, they have the plasma screen monitors. Those are that kind of technology is available in all those meeting rooms, so that advocates can take advantage of their technology tools in all the meetings. So lots of data ports, laptops, and projection capability in each of those rooms. All right, so now I'm going to switch gears and talk more about the driver related to the actual work environment for the staff. Cheryl was very committed to capitalizing on the most current thinking related to collaborative work environments. And of course, this means resisting the old-fashioned model of a bunch of single occupancy private offices configured on a double-loaded corridor, and instead favors a more open plan arrangement, as you can see in the plan here. To create true opportunities for collaboration, we feel like you have to be very careful to have flexible furnishings that are in an open plan configuration. And you can see the typical workstation is a U-shaped arrangement. There's 4 U's per space, and then there are 2 of these spaces that organizes everybody into pairs. Typically, the way that Abacus uses these pairs is there's a mentor and a mentoree in each of those U-shaped configurations. Many of the components of the furniture are on casters so they can be moved around. You see that small table that's between the 2 workstations that can move and be adaptable for either other papers or for that meeting or other uses. And these workstations are also very generous in proportion. So this is not analogous to the old 8 by 8 cubicle that has been scorned over the years in many of the more failed sort of open plan configurations. This is much friendlier and has a lot more high performance. This is another detailed view, and it's worth noting we did choose very carefully to select a partition height that protected the ability to have privacy when you're seated, and but at the same time not restrict your ability to collaborate with your other teammates, nor does it restrict your ability to have a connection to the outdoors. And of course, that's a huge advantage in a more open plan configuration. Every staff member has equal access to a view of outdoors and daylighting, which was very, very important in the design of the space.
And that's just important in all workspaces, having access to outside light, right?
It's very, very important. And in fact, we went to great lengths in modifying this existing structure to punch it with these new bay windows and an atrium that provides additional daylighting. And in fact, we've listed at the end of this presentation a couple of resources that give more science to that fact. That talks about how daylighting improves worker productivity, makes everybody feel better. It really encourages people to stay at work longer, which has some bottom line advantages, but it also has a significant quality of life component to it too, and the science is there to support that. This next slide shows another very important component of creating a truly collaborative work environment, and that's the ability for folks to meet, for team members to get together on an impromptu basis and collaborate together. To do that, you do need to create opportunities for meetings to happen outside of your workstation. And at Abacus, we were particularly concerned about creating those opportunities, and these are 3 different spaces that provide that ability. The one at the top was conceived initially as a private office for Cheryl, but she was firmly committed to being connected with the rest of the studio, and it's in fact her permanent office is out in the open plan configuration like all the other staff members. So this actually became a more dedicated training space for staff to come in. There's a lot of technology in this room, although it's cropped from the photograph. You could come in with a wireless laptop and keyboard and a couple of plasma screen monitors do some great training and collaborative work in an environment that's acoustically isolated from the rest of the staff. The photograph on the bottom left is a small team meeting room that's right off of the main studios, and then the photograph on the bottom right is actually a break area and brainstorming room, and one of the walls in that room is a marker board. The entire wall is a marker board, and they take full advantage of that often and write on the wall and write messages to each other. Sometimes it's fun, it's not all work, but it's a real imaginative space for them. All right, so the final thing, Andrew, I want to talk about is sometimes a little difficult to talk about because it sounds a little subjective or intangible, and that's about creating a real quality workspace, which we know, again, contributes to worker productivity and people's comfort at being at the office. There are a number of issues that contribute to this notion of quality, and I've kind of put together a quick list of some of those. First is a concern about indoor air quality, and this is really mirroring a lot of concerns that are in the sustainability movement in architecture right now. But it's a recognition that a lot of the materials that we as designers specify can contribute to a healthy work environment or not, depending on the composition of the materials. So all of the materials that we selected for Abacus are low-emitting materials such as sealants and paints and finishes that really improve the indoor air quality. The second issue, of course, is quality furnishings. Furniture can cost anything from A to Z, and it's not just a cost-driven exercise, of course, but getting well-designed furniture with excellent ergonomics is critical for worker comfort and therefore productivity and their ability to stay at the office. Another issue, we were careful to protect enough money in the overall budget to purchase art. And this particular photograph is a good example of that. We purchased a number of pieces from local artists, and it's shown prominently throughout the space. And then the final issue is one that we touched on briefly, and that's this, protecting the ability to have quality daylighting and views into the interior. And I mentioned this is an existing building that was rehabbed. One of the primary walls where you would maybe expect to find windows is actually on a property line, and we were not able to put windows there, so we actually went to the trouble, if you will, of putting in a clear story, as you can see in the section in this composite, to get additional daylighting into the interior. And then we built these glass bay windows along the other facade that allows for greater views and daylight. That's pretty much it.
Thank you for doing this, Doug.
You bet. Thank you.